Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada, where you can come and associate directly with His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and hear his purports and his translations, and get his sangha, get his association, along with other serious devotees who are serious about hearing and assimilating the truth, seekers of the absolute truth. Welcome aboard. I got a message that we're up to over 1,300 followers now. Over 1,300 followers. So all of you out there, I don't know, I know that you're not all there every day. I don't know how often you tune in and listen, but thanks very much. Deeply appreciated. And we're very happy to be of service to the Vaishnavas. This is very dear to Srila Prabhupada. He spent so much time and so much effort to translate and comment on these books. And his plot was that his distribution, the mass distribution of these books, called the Brihad Madanga, would uplift human society, and it will eventually. It may take a few generations, but it will. Okay. So, here we are. Let's hear Sanatana Goswami's prayers, glorifying the Srimad-Bhagavatam. They go like this. Sarva Shastrabdipi Yusha, Sarva Vedaika Satpala, Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya, Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana, Srimad Bhagavata Prabho, Kalidwandodita Ditya, Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master, Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya, Prema Varshaksharayate, Sarvada Savasevyaya, Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madhika Bando Matsangin, Madguro Mad Mahadana, Mandishtadaka Mad Bhagya, Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadutadayan atinit chotatakada hanamunchagada mam premna rit kantayaspura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 12. Dhruva Maharaj goes back to Godhead. Text 38. Text 38. In this way, the fully Krishna conscious Dhruva Maharaj, the exalted son of Maharaj Uttanapad, attained. Am I in the right place?
Yeah, it's King Vena, Maharaj.
Oh, that's right. 12. What?
Chapter 14.
It's 1438.
Yeah,
See, I went to another place, and I went back to where I'm supposed to be, and I went to a place where I wasn't supposed to be. Okay, this has to be changed. Do you know how to change it? The title? You don't know how to change the title. Okay, we have to edit the title, because I put 4:12:38, and it's supposed to be 12:14:38.
It does say 38.
Yeah, no, but it's not 12. It says 12:38. It's supposed to say 14:38. Right?
Yes,
I don't think you can see the title.
Yeah, I will put the title here. No, no title here.
14:38. Okay.
I think we can change it when we finish.
Yeah, we can change it when we finish. All right. Inconvenience. Regret it. To everyone. Hare Krishna.
Maybe
Okay.
write a comment, like we're on verse.
You can send a comment.
No, you don't need to send a comment because it's already titled. There's a title, and then we edit the title. I don't exactly know how to do it, but I know that it's doable. Okay. Canto 4, Chapter 14. The story of King Vena. Correct. Text 38. When the great sages were carrying on their discussion in this way, they saw a dust storm arising from all directions. This storm was caused by the running of thieves and rogues who were engaged in plundering the citizens. So you remember, they killed Vena, and then they went back to their hermitages or whatever, their places, their ashrams. And now they're realizing that there needs to be a king. Now we'll see what they're going to do. Purport. Thieves and rogues simply await some political upset in order to take the opportunity to plunder the people in general. To keep thieves and rogues inactive in their profession, a strong government is always required. Text 39 and 40. Upon seeing the dust storm, the saintly persons could understand that there were a great deal of irregularities due to the death of King Vena. Without government, the state was devoid of law and order, and consequently there was a great uprising of murderous thieves and rogues who were plundering the riches of the people in general. Although the great sages could subdue the disturbance by their powers, just as they could kill the king, they considered it improper on their part to do so. Thus they did not attempt to stop the disturbance. Purport. The saintly persons and great sages killed King Vena out of emergency, but they did not choose to take part in the government in order to subdue the uprising of thieves and rogues which took place after the death of King Vena. It is not the duty of brahmanas and saintly persons to kill, although they may sometimes do so in case of an emergency. They could kill all the thieves and rogues by the prowess of their mantras, but they thought it the duty of Kshatriya kings to do so. Thus they reluctantly did not take part in the killing business. Text 41. The great sages begin to think that although a brahmana is peaceful and impartial because he is equal to everyone, it is still not his duty to neglect poor humans. By such neglect, a brahmana's spiritual power diminishes, just as water kept in a cracked pot leaks out. Purport. Brahmanas, the topmost section of human society, are mostly devotees. They are generally unaware of the happenings within the material world because they are always busy in their activities for spiritual advancement. Nonetheless, when there is a calamity in human society, they cannot remain impartial. If they do not do something to relieve the distressed condition of human society, it is said that due to such neglect, their spiritual knowledge diminishes. Almost all the sages go to the Himalayas for their personal benefit, but Prahlad Maharaj said that he did not want liberation alone. He decided to wait until he was able to deliver all these fallen souls of the world. In their elevated condition, the Brahmanas are called Vaishnavas. There are two types of Brahmanas, namely Brahmana Pandit and Brahmana Vaishnava. A qualified Brahmana is naturally very learned, but when his learning is advanced in understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he becomes a Brahmana Vaishnava. Unless one becomes a Vaishnava, one's perfection of Brahminical culture is incomplete. The saintly persons considered very wisely that although King Vena was very sinful, he was born in a family descending from Dhruva Maharaj. Therefore the semen in the family must be protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Keshava. As such, the sages wanted to take some steps to relieve the situation. For want of a king, everything was being disturbed and turned topsy-turvy. Text 42. The sages decided that the descendants of the family of the saintly king Anga should not be stopped, for in this family the semen was very powerful and the children were prone to become devotees of the Lord. Purport. The purity of hereditary succession is called Amogha Virya. The pious seminal succession in the twice-born families of the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas especially, as well as the families of Vaishyas also, must be kept very pure by the observation of the purificatory processes beginning with Garbhadhana Sanskara, which is observed before conceiving a child. Unless this purificatory process is strictly observed, especially by the Brahmanas, the family descendants become impure, and gradually sinful activities become visible in the family. Maharaj Anga was very pure because of the purification of semen in the family of Maharaj Dhruva. However, his semen became contaminated in association with his wife, Sunita, who happened to be the daughter of death personified. Because of this polluted semen, King Vena was produced. This was a catastrophe in the family of Dhruva Maharaj. All the saintly persons and sages considered this point, and they decided to take action in this matter, as described in the following verses. Text 43. After making a decision, the saintly persons and sages churned the thighs of the dead body of King Vena with great force and according to a specific method. As a result of this churning, a dwarf-like person was born from King Vena's body. Purport. That a person was born by the churning of the thighs of King Vena proves that the spirit soul is individual and separate from the body. The great sages and saintly persons could beget another person from the body of the dead King Vena, but it was not possible for them to bring King Vena back to life. King Vena was gone, and certainly he had taken another body. The saintly persons and sages were only concerned with the body of Vena because it was a result of the seminal succession in the family of Maharaj Dhruva. Consequently, the ingredients by which another body could be produced were there in the body of King Vena. By a certain process, when the thighs of the dead body were churned, another body came out. Although dead, the body of King Vena was preserved by drugs and mantras chanted by King Vena's mother. In this way, the ingredients for the production of another body were there. When the body of a person named Bahuka came out of the dead body of King Vena, it was really not very astonishing. It was simply a question of knowing how to do it. From the semen of one body, another body is produced, and the life symptoms are visible due to the souls taking shelter of this body. One should not think that it was impossible for another body to come out of the dead body of Maharaj Vena. This was performed by the skillful action of the sages. Text 44. This person, born from King Vena's thighs, was named Bahuka, and his complexion was as black as a crow's. All the limbs of his body were very short. His arms and legs were short, and his jaws were large. His nose was flat, his eyes were reddish, and his hair copper-colored. Text 45. He was very submissive and meek, and immediately after his birth, he bowed down and inquired, "Sirs, what shall I do?" The great sages replied, "Please sit down, Nishida." Thus Nishada, the father of the Naishada race, was born. Purport. It is said in the Shastras that the complexion of the body represents the Brahmanas, the arms represent the Kshatriyas, the abdomen represents the Vaishyas, and the legs, beginning with the thighs, represent the Shudras. The Shudras are sometimes called black or Krishna. The Brahmanas are called Shukla or white, and the Kshatriyas and Vaishyas are a mixture of black and white. However, those who are extraordinarily white are said to have skin produced out of white leprosy. That explains it. It may be concluded that white or golden hue is the color of the higher caste and black is the complexion of the Shudras. Text 46. After his, Nishada's birth, he immediately took charge of all the resultant actions of King Vena's sinful activities. As such, this Naishada race are always engaged in sinful activities like stealing, plundering, and hunting. Consequently, they are only allowed to live in the hills and forests. Purport. The Naishadas are not allowed to live in cities and towns because they are sinful by nature. As such, their bodies are very ugly, and their occupations are also sinful. We should, however, know that even these sinful men, who are sometimes known as Kiratas, can be delivered from their sinful condition to the topmost Vaishnava platform by the mercy of a pure devotee. Engagement in the transcendental loving service of the Lord can make anyone, however sinful he may be, fit to return home, back to Godhead. One has only to become free from all contamination by the process of devotional service. In this way, everyone can become fit to return back home, back to Godhead. Hare Krishna. This is confirmed by the Lord Himself in Bhagavad Gita 9:32. Mam hiparta yapashrit ya yepisu papajone ya striyo vaishyas tata shudras tepiyanti param gatim. O son of Prita, those who take shelter of me, though they be of lower birth, women, Vaishyas, merchants, as well as Shudras, workers, can approach the supreme destination. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 4th canto, 14th chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled The Story of King Vena. Another act in the drama. And now the curtain is going to open on the next act. Chapter 15. King Prithu's appearance and coronation. Text 1. The great Maitreya continued. My dear Vidura, thus the Brahmanas and the great sages again churned the 2 arms of King Vena's dead body. As a result, a male and female couple came out of his arms. Text 2. The great sages were highly learned in Vedic knowledge. When they saw the male and female born of the arms of Vena's body, they were very pleased, for they could understand that the couple was an expansion of a plenary portion of Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. The method adopted by the great sages and scholars who were learned in Vedic knowledge was perfect. They removed all the reactions of King Vena's sinful activities by seeing that King Vena first gave birth to Bahuka, described in the previous chapter. After King Vena's body was thus purified, a male and female came out of it, and the great sages could understand that this was an expansion of Lord Vishnu. This expansion, of course, was not Vishnu Tattva, but a specifically empowered expansion of Lord Vishnu known as Avesha. Text 3. The great sages said, the male is a plenary expansion of the power of Lord Vishnu, who maintains the entire universe, and the female is a plenary expansion of the goddess of fortune, who is never separated from the Lord. Purport. The significance of the goddess of fortunes never being separated from the Lord is clearly mentioned here. People in the material world are very fond of the goddess of fortune, and they want her favor in the form of riches. They should know, however, that the goddess of fortune is inseparable from Lord Vishnu. Materialists should understand that the goddess of fortune should be worshipped along with Lord Vishnu and should not be regarded separately. Materialists seeking the favor of the goddess of fortune must worship Lord Vishnu and Lakshmi together to maintain material opulence. If a materialist follows the policy of Ravana, who wanted to separate Sita from Lord Ramachandra, the process of separation will vanquish him. Those who are very rich and have taken favor of the goddess of fortune in this world must engage their money in the service of the Lord. In this way, they can continue their opulent position without disturbance. I just read a headline that said that right now there's 26 men who hold as much wealth as the poorest 3.8 billion people on this planet. Yeah, that's called unsustainable. Yeah, yeah, it's insane. Text 4. Of the two, the male will be able to expand his reputation throughout the world. His name will be Prithu. Indeed, he will be the first among kings. Purport. There are different types of incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Shastras, it is said that Garuda, the carrier of Lord Vishnu, and Lord Shiva and Ananta are all very powerful incarnations of the Brahman feature of the Lord. Similarly, Shachipati, or Indra, the king of heaven, is an incarnation of the lusty feature of the Lord. Aniruddha is an incarnation of the Lord's mind, and similarly, King Prithu is an incarnation of the ruling force of the Lord. Thus, the saintly persons and great sages predicted the future activities of King Prithu, who was already explained as a partial incarnation of a plenary expansion of the Lord. Text 5. The female had such beautiful teeth and beautiful qualities that she will actually beautify the ornaments she wears. Her name will be Archi. In the future, she will accept King Prithu as her husband. Text 6. In the form of King Prithu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead has appeared through a part of his potency to protect the people of the world. The goddess of fortune is the constant companion of the Lord, and therefore she has incarnated partially as Archi to become King Prithu's queen. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that whenever he sees an extraordinary power, he should conclude. Whenever one sees an extraordinary power, he should conclude that a specific partial representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is present. There are innumerable such personalities, but not all of them are direct Vishnu Tattva plenary expansions of the Lord. Many living entities are classified among the Shakti Tattvas. Such incarnations, empowered for specific purposes, are known as Shaktyavesha avatars. King Prithu was such a Shaktyavesha avatar of the Lord. Similarly, Archi, King Prithu's wife, was a Shaktyavesha avatar of the goddess of fortune. Text 7. The great sage Maitreya continued. My dear Viduraji, at that time, all the Brahmanas highly praised and glorified King Prithu, and the best singers of Gandharva Loka chanted his glories. The inhabitants of Siddhaloka showered flowers, and the beautiful women in the heavenly planets danced in ecstasy. Text 8. Conch shells, bugles, drums, and kettle drums vibrated in outer space. Great sages, forefathers, and personalities from the heavenly planets all came to earth from various planetary systems. Text 9 and 10. Lord Brahma, the master of the entire universe, arrived there, accompanied by all the demigods and their chiefs. Seeing the lines of Lord Vishnu's palm on King Prithu's right hand and impressions of lotus flowers on the soles of his feet, Lord Brahma could understand that King Prithu was a partial representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One whose palm bears the sign of a disc, as well as other such lines, should be considered a partial representation or incarnation of the Supreme Lord. Purport. There is a system by which one can detect an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Nowadays, it has become a cheap fashion to accept any rascal as an incarnation of God. But from this incident, we can see that Lord Brahma personally examined the hands and feet of King Prithu for specific signs. In their prophecies, the learned sages and Brahmanas accepted Prithu Maharaj as a plenary partial expansion of the Lord. During the presence of Lord Krishna, however, a king declared himself Vasudeva, and Lord Krishna killed him. Before accepting someone as an incarnation of God, one should verify his identity according to the symptoms mentioned in the Shastra. Without these symptoms, the pretender is subject to be killed by the authorities for pretending to be an incarnation of God. Text 11. The learned Brahmanas, who were very attached to Vedic ritualistic ceremonies, then arranged for the king's coronation. People from all directions collected all the different paraphernalia for the ceremony. Thus, everything was complete. Text 12. All the rivers, seas, hills, mountains, serpents, cows, birds, animals, heavenly planets, the earthly planet, and all other living entities collected various presentations according to their ability to offer to the king. Text 13. Thus the great King Prithu, exquisitely dressed with garments and ornaments, was coronated and placed on the throne. The king and his wife, Archie, who was also exquisitely ornamented, appeared like fire. Text 14. The great sage continued, My dear Vidura, Kuvera presented the great King Prithu with a golden throne. The demigod Varuna presented him with an umbrella that constantly sprayed fine particles of water and was as brilliant as the moon. Text 15. The demigod of air, Vayu, presented King Prithu with 2 whisks, chamaras of hair. The king of religion, Dharma, presented him with a flower garland which would expand his fame. The king of heaven, Indra, presented him with a valuable helmet, and the superintendent of death, Yamaraj, presented him with a scepter with which to rule the world. Text 16. Lord Brahma presented King Prithu with a protective garment made of spiritual knowledge. Whoa. Bharati, Saraswati, the wife of Brahma, gave him a transcendental necklace. Lord Vishnu presented him with a Sudarshan disc, and Lord Vishnu's wife, the goddess of fortune, gave him imperishable opulences. Purport. All the demigods presented various gifts to King Prithu. Hari, an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, known as Upendra in the heavenly planet, presented the king with a Sudarshan disc. It should be understood that this Sudarshan disc is not exactly the same type of Sudarshan disc used by the Personality of Godhead Krishna or Vishnu. Since Maharaj Prithu was a partial representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's power, the Sudarshan disc given to him represented the partial power of the original Sudarshan disc. Text 17. Lord Shiva presented him with a sword within a sheath marked with 10 moons, and his wife, the goddess Durga, presented him with a shield marked with 100 moons. The moon demigod presented him with horses made of nectar, and the demigod Vishwakarma presented him with a very beautiful chariot. Text 18. The demigod of fire, Agni, presented him with a bow made of the horns of goats and cows. The sun god presented him with arrows as brilliant as sunshine. The predominating deity of Burloka presented him with slippers full of mystic power. The demigods from outer space brought him presentations of flowers again and again. Purport. This verse describes that the king's slippers were invested with mystic powers, paduke yogamayao. Thus, as soon as the king placed his feet in the slippers, they would immediately carry him wherever he desired. Handy. Mystic yogis can transfer themselves from one place to another whenever they desire. A similar power was invested in the slippers of King Prithu. Text 19. The demigods who always travel in outer space gave King Prithu the arts to perform dramas, sing songs, play musical instruments, and disappear at his will. The great sages also offered him infallible blessings. The ocean offered him a conch shell produced from the ocean. Text 20. The seas, mountains, and rivers gave him room to drive his chariot without impediments. And a Sutta, a Magadha, and a Vandi offered prayers and praises. They all presented themselves before him to perform their respective duties. Text 21. Thus, when the greatly powerful King Prithu, the son of Vena, saw the professionals before him to congratulate them, he smiled, and with the gravity of the vibrating sounds of clouds, he spoke as follows. Text 22. King Prithu said, O gentle Sutta, Magadha, and other devotee offering prayers, the qualities of which you have spoken are not distinct in me. Why then should you praise me for all these qualities when I do not shelter these features? I do not wish for these words meant for me to go in vain, but it is better that they be offered to someone else. Purport. The prayers and praises of by the Sutta, Magadha, and Bandi all explained the godly qualities of Maharaj Prithu, for he was a Shaktivesh incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because the qualities were not yet manifest, however, King Prithu very humbly asked why the devotees should praise him with such exalted words. He did not want anyone to offer him prayers or glorify him unless he possessed the real qualities of which they spoke. The offering of prayers was certainly appropriate, for he was an incarnation of Godhead, but he warned that one should not be accepted as an incarnation of Godhead, or an incarnation of the personality of Godhead, without having the godly qualities. At the present moment, there are many so-called incarnations of the personality of Godhead, but these are merely fools and rascals whom people accept as incarnations of God, although they have no godly qualities. King Prithu desired that his real characteristics in the future might justify such words of praise. Although there was no fault in the prayers offered, Prithu Maharaj indicated that such prayers should not be offered to an unfit person who pretends to be an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 23. O gentle reciters, offer such prayers in due course of time, when the qualities of which you have spoken actually manifest themselves in me. The gentle, who offer prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, do not attribute such qualities to a human being who does not actually have them. Purport. Great devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead know perfectly well who is God and who is not. Non-devotee impersonalists, however, who have no idea what God is and who never offer prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are always interested in accepting a human being as God and offering such prayers to Him. This is the difference between a devotee and a demon. Demons manufacture their own gods, or a demon himself claims to be God, following in the footsteps of Ravana and Hiranyakashipu. Although Prithu Maharaj was factually an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he rejected those praises because the qualities of the Supreme Person were not yet manifest in him. He wanted to stress that one who does not actually possess these qualities should not try to engage his followers and devotees in offering him glory for them, even though these qualities might be manifest in the future. If a man who does not factually possess the attributes of a great personality engages his followers in praising him with the expectation that such attributes will develop in the future, that sort of praise is actually an insult. Text 24. How could an intelligent man, competent enough to possess such exalted qualities, allow his followers to praise him if he did not actually have them? Praising a man by saying that if he were educated, he might have become a great scholar or great personality is nothing but a process of cheating. A foolish person who agrees to accept such praise does not know. Purport. Prithu Maharaj was an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as Lord Brahma and other demigods had already testified when they had presented the king with many heavenly gifts. Because he had just been coronated, however, he could not manifest his godly qualities in action. Therefore, he was not willing to accept the praise of the devotees. So-called incarnations of Godhead should therefore take lessons from the behavior of King Prithu. Demons without godly qualities should not accept false praise from their followers. What to speak of always praising oneself? Hare Krishna. Text 25. A person with a sense of honor and magnanimity does not like to hear about his abominable actions. A person who is very famous and powerful does not like to hear himself praised. I'll read that again. As a person with a sense of honor and magnanimity does not like to hear about his abominable actions, a person who is very famous and powerful does not like to hear himself praised. 26. King Prithu continued, "My dear devotees, headed by the sutta, just now I am not very famous for my personal activities because I have not done anything praiseworthy you could glorify. Therefore, how could I engage you in praising my activities exactly like children?" Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 4th canto, 15th chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled King Prithu's Appearance and Coronation. Okay, now we'll see what Prithu Maharaj does to deserve all that praise. 16. Praise of King Prithu by the professional reciters. Text 1. The great sage Maitreya continued, while King Prithu thus spoke, the humility of his nectarian speeches pleased the reciters very much. Then again they continued to praise the king highly with exalted prayers, as they had been instructed by the sages. Purport. Here the word Muni Chodita indicates instructions received from great sages and saintly persons. Although Maharaj Prithu was simply enthroned on the royal seat and was not at that time exhibiting his godly powers, the reciters like the Sutta and Magadha and Nivandi understood that King Prithu was an incarnation of God. They could understand this by the instructions given by the great sages and learned brahmanas. We have to understand the incarnations of God by the instructions of authorized persons. We cannot manufacture a God by our own concoctions. As stated by Narottam Das Thakur, Sadhu Shastra Guru, one has to test all spiritual matters according to the instructions of saintly persons, scriptures, and the spiritual master. The spiritual master is one who follows the instructions of his predecessors, namely the sadhus, or saintly persons. The bona fide spiritual master does not mention anything not mentioned in the authorized scriptures. Ordinary people have to follow the instructions of sadhu, shastra, and guru. Those statements made in the shastras and those made by the bona fide sadhu or guru cannot differ from one another. Reciters like the Sutta and Magadha were confidently aware that King Prithu was an incarnation of the personality of Godhead. Although the king denied such praise because he was not at that time exhibiting his godly qualities, the reciters did not stop praising him. Rather, they were very pleased with the king, who, although actually an incarnation of God, was so humble and delightful in his dealings with devotees. In this connection, we may note that previously, 415.21, it was mentioned that King Prithu was smiling and was in a pleasant mood while speaking to the reciters. Thus we have to learn from the Lord, or his incarnation, how to become gentle and humble. The king's behavior was very pleasing to the reciters, and consequently the reciters continued their praise and even foretold the king's future activities, as they had been instructed by the sadhus and sages. Text 2. The reciters continued, "Dear King, you are a direct incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, and by his causeless mercy, you have descended to this earth. Therefore, it is not possible for us to actually glorify your exalted activities. Although you have appeared through the body of King Vena, even great orators and speakers like Lord Brahma and other demigods cannot exactly describe the glorious activities of your lordship." Purport. In this verse, the word Mayaya means by your causeless mercy. The Mayavadi philosophers explained the word Maya as meaning illusion or falseness. However, there is another meaning of Maya, that is, causeless mercy. There are two kinds of Maya, Yoga Maya and Mahamaya. Mahamaya is an expansion of Yoga Maya, and both these Mayas are different expressions of the Lord's internal potencies. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord appears through his internal potencies, Atma Mayaya. We should therefore reject the Mayavad explanation that the Lord appears in a body given by the external potency, the material energy. The Lord and His incarnation are fully independent and can appear anywhere and everywhere by virtue of the internal potency. Although born out of the so-called dead body of King Vena, King Prithu was still an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead by the Lord's internal potency. The Lord can appear in any family. Sometimes He appears as a fish incarnation, Matsya avatar, or a boar incarnation, Varaha avatar. Thus the Lord is completely free and independent to appear anywhere and everywhere by His internal potency. It is stated that Ananta, an incarnation of the Lord who has unlimited mouths, cannot reach the end of his glorification of the Lord, although Ananta has been describing the Lord since time immemorial. So what to speak of demigods like Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and others? It is said that the Lord is Shiva Virinchi Nutam, always worshipped by demigods like Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. If the demigods cannot find adequate language to express the glories of the Lord, then what to speak of others? Consequently, reciters like the Sutta and Magadha felt inadequate to speak about King Prithu. By glorifying the Lord with exalted verses, one becomes purified. Although we are unable to offer prayers to the Lord in an adequate fashion, our duty is to make the attempt in order to purify ourselves. It is not that we should stop our glorification because demigods like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva cannot adequately glorify the Lord. Rather, as stated by Prahlad Maharaj, everyone should glorify the Lord according to his ability. If we are serious and sincere devotees, the Lord will give us the intelligence to offer prayers properly. Text 3. Although we are unable to glorify you adequately, we nonetheless have a transcendental taste for glorifying your activities. We shall try to glorify you according to the instructions given from authoritative sages and scholars. Whatever we speak, however, is always inadequate and very insignificant. Dear King, because you are a direct incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all your activities are liberal and ever laudable. Purport. However expert one may be, he can never describe the glories of your Lord adequately. Nonetheless, those engaged in glorifying the activities of the Lord should try to do so as far as possible. Such an attempt will please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Chaitanya has advised all his followers to go everywhere and preach the message of Lord Krishna. Since this message is essentially Bhagavad Gita, the preacher's duty is to study Bhagavad Gita excuse me. Since this message is essentially Bhagavad Gita, the preacher's duty is to study Bhagavad Gita as it is understood by disciplic succession and explained by great sages and learned devotees. One should speak to the general populace in accordance with one's predecessors, sadhu, guru, and shastra. This simple process is the easiest method by which one can glorify the Lord. Devotional service, however, is the real method, for by devotional service one can satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead with just a few words. Without devotional service, volumes of books cannot satisfy the Lord. I'll read that again. Without devotional service, volumes of books cannot satisfy the Lord. Even though preachers of the Krishna consciousness movement may be unable to describe the glories of the Lord, they can nonetheless go everywhere and request people to chant Hare Krishna. Formula. Text 4. This king, Maharaj Prithu, is the best amongst those who are following religious principles. As such, he will engage everyone in the pursuit of religious principles and give those principles all protection. He will also be a great chastiser to the irreligious and atheistic. Purport. The duty of the king, or the head of the government, is described very nicely in this verse. It is the duty of the governmental head to see that people strictly follow a religious life. A king should also be strict in chastising the atheists. In other words, an atheistic or godless government should never be supported by a king or governmental chief. That is the test of good government. In the name of secular government, the king or governmental head remains neutral and allows people to engage in all sorts of religious activities. In such a state, people cannot be happy, despite all economic development. However, in this age of Kali, there are no pious kings. Instead, rogues and thieves are elected to the head of government. Whoops. But how can the people be happy without religion and God consciousness? The rogues exact taxes from the citizens for their own sense enjoyment. And in the future, the people will be so much harassed that according to Srimad-Bhagavatam, they will flee from their homes and country and take shelter in the forest. You know, those people that I was talking about, they have all the wealth, same amount of wealth as 3.8 billion people. So they just recently made a tax deduction for those people. However, in Kali Yuga, democratic government can be captured by Krishna-conscious people. If this can be done, the general populace can be made very happy. Text 5. This king alone, in his own body, will be able to, in due course of time, to maintain all living entities and give them in a pleasant and keep them in a pleasant condition by manifesting himself as different demigods to perform various departmental activities. Thus, he will maintain the upper planetary system by inducing the populace to perform Vedic sacrifices. In due course of time, he will also maintain this earthly planet by discharging proper rainfall. Purport. The demigods in charge of the various departmental activities that maintain this world are but assistants to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When an incarnation of Godhead descends onto this planet, demigods like the sun god, the moon god, or the king of heaven, Indra, all join him. Consequently, the incarnation of Godhead is able to act for the departmental demigods to keep the planetary systems in order. The protection of the earthly planet is dependent on proper rainfall, and as stated in Bhagavad Gita and other scriptures, sacrifices are performed to please those demigods who are in charge of rainfall. Anadbhavanti bhutani parjanyat anasambhavaha yagyat bhavati parjanyo yagya karma samudbhavaha. All living bodies subsist on food grains, which are produced from rains. Rains are produced by performance of yagya, sacrifice, and yagya is born of prescribed duties. Bhagavad Gita 3:14. Thus, the proper execution of yagya, sacrifice, is required. As indicated herein, Prithu King Prithu alone would induce all the citizens to engage in such sacrificial sacrifices so that there would not be scarcity or distress. In Kali Yuga, however, in the so-called secular state, the executive branch of government is in the charge of so-called kings and presidents who are all fools and rascals, ignorant of the intricacies of nature's causes and ignorant of the principles of sacrifice. Such rascals simply make various plans which always fail, and the people subsequently suffer disturbances. To counteract this situation, the Shastras advise Harir Nama, Harir Nama, Harir Nama Eva Kevalam, Kalo Nastyeva, 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 Gatir Anyatha. Thus, to counteract this unfortunate situation in government, the general populace is advised to chant the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And with that, we will end tonight's reading. Hare Krishna. That's a little about an hour reading. And we'll have our daily reflections on what we just read. Anyone who heard something stuck in their mind and they want to reflect on it or discuss more any topic, we should have a raffle. Do you have something? Do you have something? No.
I had one doubt in one of the purports.
I thought so. From the mouths of babes. Go ahead.
So it said that Maharaj Prithu was born out of the so-called dead body of King Vena. So why was it called so-called dead body?
Well, first of all, it was preserved. It was embalmed and preserved by certain mantras. I mean, these things may seem far out to us now in Kali Yuga, when everything, all the different mystic powers and potencies and even the opulences of the natural resources and the food and air and everything is so polluted that our bodies are not capable, even the bodies of saintly persons are not as capable of doing things as they were before. But the other reason why it said that so-called dead body was that the Lord was going to appear from this body. So the Lord, it made in the purport, one of the purports, it made the point that the Lord is free to appear anywhere, at any time, from any place. Just like when Hiranyakashipu was torturing Prahlad, and just before he was going to kill him personally, his own son, 5 years old, he said, Prahlad, you say that God is everywhere. Is he here in this pillar? And he clunked his sword on the pillar. And Prahlad said, yes, he's there. And then he said, let's see what he'll do now. And then he smashed the pillar with his sword. And then Lord Nishingadev came out of the pillar. So when the Lord appears, it's not that he doesn't have to appear through a womb of a mother or any particular way. He can appear any time, from any place. So that's another reason why it said that the body is so-called dead body. And he chose to do that because the sages desired it. Paritarayana sadhuram vinashaya chatuskanam. So the Lord appears to please his devotees, to satisfy his devotees. And he comes in a form that is consistent with the desire of the devotees. So at that time there was a need for a king to set this place straight. There was no king for a while, no leadership, and therefore there were rogues and thieves everywhere. Just like today, there's rogues and thieves everywhere. They're now in cyberspace, these rascals. They're trying to go inside cyberspace and steal and cause confusion and disrupt elections and so many things. So therefore he appeared as a king, and he did symbolically out of the arms of Vena, because remember, the body of King Vena was from the semen of Dhruva. Therefore it was potentially very powerful. But because the mother was not pure, therefore this kind of Vena came out, and he was not so good. Therefore they changed the legs where the Shudras come from, and the Nishada came out, and from that the impurity of the mother came out, and then created that one. What do you call it? Not species exactly, but a quality of person, a type of person that just lives in the forest because they're not civilized. But then when that purity was out of the body, then they churned the arms, which is where the Kshatriyas come from the arms. And then King Prithu and Archie agreed to appear from those places. You won't read that in your science book. They have other ideas about where life came from.
From monkeys.
Yeah. I think some of them did, or they still are. Okay, what else? We have something from the cyberspace. So it's not just the rascals who are in cyberspace, the devotees are in cyberspace also. Everything can be used in Krishna's service. Yes. You're going to read?
Okay, Krishna Katadas says that in the last purport it states there are two kinds of Maya, Yoga Maya and Mahamaya. Mahamaya is an expansion of Yoga Maya, and both these Mayas are different expansions of the Lord's internal potencies. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord appears through his internal potency, Atma Mayaya. Can you please explain these two Mayas a little more and their duties?
Yes. In the Bhagavad Gita, there's a statement, Naham Prakasha Sarvasya Yoga Maya Samavritaha Mudho Yam Nabijanati Lokamam Ajavavyayam. So Krishna here says that he reserves the right not to appear before just anyone and everyone. So Yoga Maya is the internal energy. The spiritual world is made of the internal energy. And in the spiritual world, Yoga Maya acts in order to bewilder the souls and cause them to forget Krishna. That Krishna is God. Not to forget Krishna. Krishna is very much there all the time. But to forget that Krishna is God. And that allows them to interact with Krishna in spontaneous loving affairs. As servants, as friends, as parent figures, as lovers, wives. Then the shadow, what Yoga Maya is, or Mahamaya, is the shadow of Yoga Maya. And I don't know if you remember this, but in one of the purports recently it described, this is in Chaitanya Charitamrita, and I'm mixing. I'm reading Chaitanya Charitamrita every morning. And this morning I read in the 5th chapter of the Adi Leela how when Lord Vishnu creates the material world, he reflects himself into the material energy. Now think about it. When you look in the mirror, you see your form. Your form is reflected in the mirror by the reflection of light. So we can do that, but Krishna can do that in the most wonderful way, in that he reflects his form into the material energy, and all of the different features or all the different codes that cause forms, that cause the atoms to come together and come apart and make the forms and cause the forms to change according to time, is reflected into the material energy. So that is Mahamaya. And the Mahamaya is the shadow of Yogamaya, the reflection of Yogamaya, and it causes the souls also to forget Krishna. But altogether, not just to forget his God and therefore allow them to exchange freely, but to forget Krishna altogether, to allow illusion to exist and forgetfulness to exist. So that's the difference between Yogamaya and Mahamaya. But they're both actually ultimately expansions of Krishna. Is that clear? Krishna Katha. Say something. Does that answer the question? When I read that in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it was either this morning or yesterday morning, it was so clear how Krishna reflects his form in all of the different things that are needed to create and cause everything to happen over time. And it's amazing, the creative potency. It's the same as our creative potency, except it's unlimited and unlimitedly wonderful. Maybe he's not there anymore, Krishna Katha.
There are more questions.
More questions?
Rati Manjari Jeanette Van Sigil asks, Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. I have a question. Tonight we heard that even though we may not feel or be qualified, we should endeavor to offer prayers to the Lord and glorify Him to the best of our ability. I was wondering, do we have any recommendations or advice on how to pray? Should we focus on learning some famous prayers of great devotees? Or would it also be beneficial to speak from our heart, however hard and covered it may be, or a combination of both?
Well, thanks, Rati, for answering your own question. You made it really easy to answer the question, because Rati Manjari has been a devotee for a very long time. I don't know if you remember seeing her. She was here for a while. She's very mature, actually, devotee. And so, yeah, you've already answered the question, but I'll repeat it just because it's something that I should do, my duty, as my duty. Yes, it's both. It's recommended that we repeat the prayers of the great souls because they're intimately in knowledge of Krishna, and Krishna is very pleased with them, and therefore their words are pleasing to Him. So their prayers are pleasing to Him. So yes, we should offer prayers to the Lord, recite the prayers of the great devotees. And by doing that, we should learn, how to please Krishna by prayers. And then as we do learn that, then we can use our own words to offer prayers to the Lord. But even before that, from our heart, we can offer simple prayers, whatever we have in our heart, whatever we want to say to the Lord, we should. So both, as you've already said. Hare Krishna. What else? More? Hit the jackpot in the cyberspace tonight.
Shiva Kumar is asking,
Huh?
Shwetadvi.
Shweta
Yeah, he's online.
your father.
No, we don't have kids yet.
I just come with them because they're my neighbors.
Save 5 minutes.
I'm mixing them all up, sorry. Old man, you gotta forgive them. Don't get old, it's a mistake. But we can't help it anyway. Hare Krishna, sorry.
Shiva Kumarp asks, why does Bhagavad Gita 7:25 verse say Yogamaya?
Because Mahamaya is an expansion of Yogamaya, and therefore ultimately it's Yogamaya. What else?
I actually do have one.
I thought so.
So King Vena's mother, Sunita, she was the daughter of death personified. So how did that necessarily make her impure?
Well, if I were to tell you that death personified were after you, how would you feel?
Scared.
Yes. And that's impure. It's unnatural to be afraid. The soul is actually not afraid. But in the material world, the different representatives of the material energy and even Krishna cause us to be afraid. That's done in order to help us, inspire us to again want to remember Krishna and go back to the spiritual world. If the material world was a nice place and we could stay here forever, then we wouldn't be able to be happy or happy forever as we can be in the spiritual world. So all those things come in the material world because to give facility for the conditioned souls to forget Krishna, because that's what we want. We wanted to forget Krishna. That's why we came here. It's a little difficult to understand, but if you examine carefully the activities of the conditioned soul sometimes, then you'll be able to see easily. Like for instance, now they have a big industry called, the cigarette industry, and now they package the packages attractively as possible and have all these far out advertisements. You don't see so many advertisements anymore, but they used to. And but now the governments are onto it. This is dangerous for your health. In England now, they require the cigarette manufacturers to actually put on the packages really clear, more clear than just a statement, the whole package. The warning has to be the whole package. This is going to kill you. So if I told you, this is going to kill you, here, take this, it'll kill you, would you take it? No. So therefore, the soul is stupid and can do anything sometimes. Clear? Okay, 10 minutes to 8. Bewitching hour for me. Thank you very much, everyone. All glories to Prithu Maharaj and Archie, the Supreme Personality of Godhead and His internal energy, partial expansions. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. We'll see you tomorrow at 4:30 Central Standard Time. Just to remind everybody. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.